WSTKS-FM Worldwide, digital collaborative learning for the 21st century. Hello, and welcome back to the Collaborative Café, a podcast about the integration of generative artificial intelligence into undergraduate education. My name is Stokes Schwartz, and I'm a professor in the Center for Integrative Studies in the Arts and Humanities at Michigan State University. The ideas shared here reflect my ongoing research and developing thoughts around GenAI's role in the post-secondary classroom. Today, we'll circle back and touch base about where we've been so far, while also looking more deeply into a point introduced a few weeks back. We've covered a lot of ground during the first 6 episodes of the series, considering what GenAI can contribute to our teaching and learning practices, to looking at cautionary notes, all the way to practical considerations for moving ahead with all of this in ways that line up with our course materials and current teaching practices. This time, however, I want to look again into the ethics of GenAI use, an issue we should keep in mind as we move ever further into this brave new world. We'll get started in one moment. When introducing artificial intelligence into our teaching and learning practices, Andy Douglas in The AI-Powered Classroom advises that, besides focusing on the considerable potential benefits of the technology, it is vital for instructors to keep the related issues of privacy and informed consent in mind. Because AI can access personal information and determine search and viewing habits, respect for students' desire for privacy is necessary. Their consent should be informed and voluntary, Douglas writes, and transparency about what artificial intelligence is, what it does, and how it operates needs to be a part of the discussion when instructors introduce the idea of using the technology as part of course activities. In short, we need to help our students become more aware of and conversant in these behind-the-scenes elements of GenAI before we make its use mandatory. We also need to discuss with our students the potential for misinformation, bias, and fairness in any output generated by an artificial intelligence should they opt to use the technology in their academic work. Bias in generative artificial intelligence output, Douglas explains, results from the information on which the technology is trained, which can lead to skewed or misrepresentative output. Inaccurate information and even prejudice can be the unfortunate results. In the worst case, hallucinations can result when artificial intelligence lacks enough information to generate reasonably informed and correct information. A risk is that an AI might make up something on the spot that, on closer examination, diverges widely from the truth. That prospect, Douglas suggests, can put some college students at a disadvantage. It's important then that we remain conscious of possible inaccuracies, omissions, and fabrications as we collaborate with our students to navigate GenAI use in open, effective ways. Pave the way for that transparent and ethical use of the technology by outlining not only clear guidelines on how AI works, but discuss the data handling, privacy, and bias issues that are part of the equation too. Beyond saying to our students, here's this fantastic new technology that can help you finish your work, I want everyone to use it, we must be careful to provide a fundamental understanding of GenAI and its less glamorous aspects. Within AI-assisted teaching and learning, a generative AI field guide for educators, Dr. Jim Wagstaff covers similar ground, examining the limitations of artificial intelligence and related ethical concerns. He points out that for all of the possibilities and potential the technology offers, GenAI nevertheless lacks the human capacity for the nuances of emotion and situational context. That's one more way an artificial intelligence might, he cautions, yield questionable output or full-blown hallucinations, leading yet again to the spread of misinformation and the perpetuation of harmful stereotypes. Critical examination and verification of GenAI output is necessary to avoid that type of situation, and it is up to college and university instructors to provide course-relevant opportunities for students to cultivate those skills. Wagstaff also considers additional ethical challenges presented by the technology, including the use of it to create false narratives of one type or another, like fake news items, so-called deepfakes, academically questionable material, or otherwise intentionally deceptive information. Similarly, and because the real possibility exists that certain jobs will soon be lost to artificial intelligence, for example, those relying on text generation, Wagstaff further points out that the technology could contribute to further economic disparity across society. To address these risks in a more conscious and effective way, he suggests the need for careful oversight of the technology and its subsequent development in order to ensure an ethical path forward that enables us to sidestep the inherent limitations of GenAI. Within ChatGPT in the classroom, William Johnson explores similar territory, also delving into data security. Besides the familiar discussion of privacy being compromised due to AI's tendency to monitor patterns of use and retain personal information, Johnson looks into the related issue of ownership. Like other authors on the subject, he advises transparency through open and routine dialogue between institutions, educators, students, and their parents. Such exchange is necessary to ensure a future in which students become more able to use GenAI in a way that aligns with instructor expectations of academic integrity, while maintaining ownership and control of not only their academic work, but also personal information. A forward-thinking, proactive approach is necessary to minimize the potential for breaches of that security. Along similar lines, Jordan B. Smith in AI Mastery Blueprint for Educational Excellence echoes Douglas in his look at the ethical implications of making GenAI part of post-secondary education. In common with Douglas, Wagstaff, and Johnson, Smith too discusses privacy concerns and the potential for biased output from GenAI. He also considers how the technology will impact the professional landscape, but Smith points out that new occupations, perhaps as yet unanticipated, will nevertheless come into being to replace those jobs lost to artificial intelligence-driven automation. Like Wagstaff, Johnson notes that it is therefore vital for college and university instructors to impart the so-called next generation or 21st century skills discussed by Christopher Dede and John Richards in the 60-year curriculum. Conscious and consistent efforts to do that, regardless of precise course focus, will equip young minds for a future in which they will need to pivot throughout their working lives. Besides critical thinking, such competencies also include creative problem solving, intellectual openness and agility, plus lifelong learning, in order to remain relevant as human lifespans increase, working lives become longer, and the professional working world continues its rapid evolution due to ongoing technological change. You might recall that I like to include generative artificial intelligence itself as part of our ongoing discussion of the technology and its integration into college and university classrooms. Today is no different. In preparing for this episode, however, I turned away from Microsoft Copilot to Claude AI, prompting it thusly. Please discuss the ethical conundrums presented by student use of generative artificial intelligence and the steps professors should take to ensure transparent, ethical, and effective use of the technology. What follows is a greatly condensed and modified version of Claude's response. Quote, "The use of generative AI by students raises ethical concerns about academic integrity, essential skill development, and the potential spread of biases and misinformation. While the technology can produce essays or solve problems quickly, it may not reflect a student's true understanding or abilities, and over-reliance on it could hinder the acquisition of crucial research and critical thinking skills. There is also a risk of unknowingly submitting AI-generated content that contains inaccuracies or harmful stereotypes. These challenges necessitate careful consideration of how to integrate AI tools into academic settings in ways that promote transparent and ethical use by students. To address these issues, professors should first establish clear guidelines for AI use, including proper attribution and documentation of its assistance. Instructors should, moreover, design their assignments to leverage the technology as a learning tool, encouraging critical student evaluation of any AI-generated output rather than depending on it for easy, fast answers. Educating students about the limitations and biases of the technology by incorporating AI literacy into our courses is therefore crucial. Requiring students to document AI use and fostering discussions about ethical considerations introduced to the learning process by the technology promote responsible use of it. Educators' ultimate goal is to prepare students for personal and professional lives in an AI-augmented world after graduation, while at the same time maintaining academic integrity as they work to master course content and develop essential skills. WSTKS-FM Worldwide. Digital collaborative learning for the 21st century. If you find this podcast helpful, be sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. Let's quickly review a few key points before we wrap up today's episode of the Collaborative Café. For all of its potential benefits to post-secondary education, the use of generative artificial intelligence introduces various concerns for educators to address. Institutions and instructors must keep the related issues of privacy and informed consent in mind, respecting students' wishes and needs before making use of the technology mandatory. The potential exists for GenAI to perpetuate bias, harmful stereotypes, unwitting, or even intentionally deceptive information. Critical review, verification, and thought are therefore necessary before students weave AI output into their work. While the technology will alter the career landscape, new kinds of jobs will materialize to replace those lost to the technology. With that anticipated development in mind, it is vital for college and university professors to cultivate the habits of transparent, ethical, and effective use of artificial intelligence among students. The cultivation of critical thought, creative problem-solving, and intellectual agility, among other key next-generation skills too, will help prepare young minds for a professional environment in which the technology augments most activities. We're already well on our way down that path, and the ability to work cohesively with artificial intelligence will shortly become a key expectation of the 21st century workplace. And that brings us to the conclusion of today's program, in which we revisited and looked more closely into a few more of the ethical concerns related to the inclusion of GenAI in higher education. Tune in next time when we'll take a long overdue look at arguments against inclusion of the technology in a post-secondary setting. Until then, thank you for joining me today in the Collaborative Café. My name is Stokes Schwartz, and I'll talk to you again soon. Until then, have a healthy, safe, and a productive week. Bye for now. You've just heard a podcast from WSTKS-FM Worldwide, digital collaborative learning for the 21st century.